And good morning as people start to join us for our webinar this morning. Thank you for coming along. It's going to give you a couple of more seconds there to connect. I know some people it takes a little longer than others depending on where you are across this great country. And it looks like we're slowing a little bit with our entries into the webinar today. Thanks for coming along. My name is Simon Dewar. And today I've got the privilege, the honour of being able to lead this little session for you. Before I kick off, I just would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we're meeting on today, wherever that may be across Australia. For me, it's the Gilligan people, Southwest Victoria, and the learning that we hopefully will work through today will value add to what's been learning for a number of years from our ancestors. I really appreciate the time that you've given up to come along and join us today. Very mindful that being a Friday morning, we often throw this around with our group in the lead up to today. Our team will go, when's the best time to run a webinar that's going to cater for principals' time expectations, demands, everything else that's going on around them. And we arrived at Friday morning. Now, I know that for some people, it's a little tricky, especially in our Queensland state there, where you're already back at school and you've got your young people on a Friday morning, probably in and out of your office. But I also acknowledge that for many states, we're still on holidays. And I go back to my time when I was a principal and used to do bits and pieces on the holidays. But really, it wasn't until probably that last day that I used to try and quarantine and say, this is a true family day. And it was a day that I used to spend with my wife and my kids and making sure that we finished the holidays well. So I know if you have that similar mode or mentality to what I did, that's going to be a day today that you would normally spend with your family. So thank you for coming along. We do appreciate it. It's an exciting moment for Real Schools, and it's an exciting morning, actually, I think, for you too. When you think about what's next in that career, when you think about the possibilities that sit there, hopefully today we'll be able to talk through some of those possibilities. But why it's exciting for us is that the last couple of years, we have seen some unbelievable success in the work that we've been doing as we grow and continue to grow and support so many schools across Australia, and that's in every state and territory. Why it's exciting is that previously, when we've had these webinars, what we've been doing is adding one new expert facilitator over a 12-month period. And then at the start of this year, we felt that growth was really in a point of saying we need to add a couple. And earlier this year, we were fortunate enough to bring 2 new expert facilitators into our team. And now I sit here today and I go, that excitement just continues to grow, because not only bringing 1, not 2, but there's up to 4 opportunities for expert facilitators to join our amazing team. And I'm going to talk a little bit about our team as we unpack today's session. But just to give you a bit of an idea, our team is probably bigger than what it looks from where you're sitting at the moment. So we have the front of house and the back of house, for a better term. We've got 6 expert facilitators. There's certainly a number of people that are spread across our country supporting schools. We're going to add that extra 4. And in addition to that, we've got an amazing support team. It's an ops team that will do whatever they can do to make our job easy. Why I mention that is that I'm fortunate enough today to have a couple of members of our ops team sitting in the background there. The ops team do amazing work in making us look good, or at least helping us. I'm not going to say that we're looking good today, but at least helping us along that journey. So I've got the wonderful Chris and Marnie sitting in the background there, and they're going to keep an eye on things for me. So why I say that is that it might be a great time for you to open up your chat box, open up your Q&A box. Now, you'll see that at times my eyes drift across a couple of different screens. I'm going to do my absolute best to keep a bit of an eye on what's going on to the side. So if you pop a question in the chat box or the Q&A box, I'll try and answer that in a way that everyone can get that same response. But I'm also mindful that with a few things open and a few screens going, that I might miss something. So you may get some support there from that ops team. I can see a couple of people have already popped in the chat box there. What we have decided to do today is to limit the chat only to come through to the host and to the panelists. And the reason why is that we get that for some people, it might be a little awkward sitting in this webinar today because you're torn. You're sitting there as a principal and you're like, oh, am I doing the right thing by joining in and listening to what Simon's got to say? Am I doing the right thing by just coming along? And, what happens if my school finds out about this? Can I just say right now that we understand that awkwardness may be present. And we also understand that and want to respect the fact that nothing will progress from here with a sharing of names or sharing of information. So what we will do is just use this as an information briefing. We will use this as a way of just being able to say, hey, can you walk out of this 20, 30-minute session with more information than when you walked in? And if we can do that, I'm going to say tick. That's our job done together this morning. So what are we doing today? And I've sort of started to allude to this already. Really, my goal today is just to be helpful. We think that as a principal, if you are giving this consideration, if you are willing to at least open up a conversation about what potentially is next in your career, then the very least that we can do is respect the fact that we don't want to just put in a one-page written document and post that on Seek and go, hey, go and find that and see what you've got to carry there. And, hopefully you'll have all of your questions answered. We also don't want you to have to sit down and work through 5 to 6 to 7 pages. What we have is the situation that we feel this is best talked about. And why is it best talked about? Because for us, what we're on about today, what we're on about with the appointment of our next group of expert facilitators is fit. We aim for a good fit. And that fit comes in 2 ways. Number one, it's, are you a good fit for our team? Are you a person who will complement the amazing group of people that we already have? We're sort of in this stage of growth that we talked about, and adding new people to the team, like we do within schools. What we look for is a team that's really complementary of skills of each other. What we look for is a way of being able to work together, and fit is a key part of that. The second thing is, are we a good fit for you? What you'll actually have is an opportunity there to be able to think, is this something I really want to do? Does this fit who I want to be as a leader? Does this fit my moral purpose? Does it fit the practicalities of what I'm looking for in life? And I guess probably today, that's what I'm aiming to unpack for you. Now, I can see, and you may see that I'm just being a little distracted. All of a sudden, that chat box is running pretty hot. So I'm going to turn to that in a second and have a quick look. But I'm also going to say right now that I probably won't get to a lot of the chat box until the end of the session, where I can really work through that. What's the plan for today? The plan really is to work through a few different areas. Number one is I want to talk a little bit about you. I want to talk a little bit about who you are and potentially who you are as you join the team. Number two is I want to talk a little bit about us at Real Schools. And the third thing I'd like to do is to talk a little bit about the process. And within that process, what we've got is the importance of understanding that, yeah, it is a process that we've got there. And how does that actually play out, which is very different to what we've probably traditionally or previously been aware of in any role that we've applied for within the education system. Because at Real Schools, what we like to do is things a little bit different. We like to do things that really work for us and that we feel are a good fit for the schools that we support. So you'll see that pop up at different stages. So let's crack into it. That first slide that I talked about there was a bit about you. I guess there's 4 areas that I'd like to cover off on today. Number one is I'm hoping that you've joined this webinar because you are a principal. And I want to make this really clear from the very get-go that we require principal experience in appointing an expert facilitator. It's a deal breaker for us. When we work with schools, when we support our schools, one of the things that we stand behind is the importance of saying we will place an experienced principal alongside you to be able to walk this journey. And what we know is that in some ways we often get questions asked, oh, but I've been an assistant principal or a deputy principal for a number of years. And, is that fair that you're only going to principals? And we acknowledge that. And we know that there are a large number of deputy principals and assistant principals that have done some amazing work, don't get me wrong, and would be able to do this job very well. But we're also very mindful that one of the undertakings for our work is to be able to place that person who has been able to sit in the big chair for a period of time. And that is something that's really important to us for us. As we say, it is a bit of a deal breaker when it comes. So no disrespect to those people who have joined thinking, oh, but I've got those skills, because we know you would have those skills. But it is a really key part of what we make sure that we guarantee our schools that we place as the support we put alongside our school principals. The second thing, when we talk a little bit about who you are, there might be some people who are here potentially for the wrong reasons. I think it's probably worth calling that out right now. So what we're looking for is this appointment to be something that is a really difficult decision. It's a really difficult decision for the person to be able to go, oh, I just love my school. I love being a principal. And I often say that, being a principal, it's one of the greatest jobs, one of the greatest professions, one of the greatest roles that you could ever undertake. It's such a worthy job to be undertaking within your community. And I look back on my time when I was a principal, it was something I was really proud to be able to carry that name. And it was an honor to be able to lead my school. But what we want is we wanted to sort of pull at that emotion of, can I really walk away? Can I leave? We want someone that's genuinely committed. So the wrong reasons that you might be here is if you're sort of going, you know what, I'm just done. I'm done with being a principal. I'm done with the system. I'm just a little angry with the way that things have been handled over the last couple of years by this department. And therefore, I'm going to step out and I'm going to do something a little bit different because I want to get away from them. So what we're looking for here is someone that is deeply committed. That purpose of being the leader of their school is still so strong that it actually makes it a really, really difficult decision. The third thing, when we talk a little bit about who you are, I think it's really worth acknowledging now that you don't need to know it all. A key part of the work that we do in supporting schools in partnership is that we work and support schools to embed restorative practice, RP 2.0. I'm going to talk a little bit about the RP 2.0 work that Adam, in over a period of time, has led, developed, and been able to support schools with. And now we've been fortunate enough to work alongside Adam and being able to spread that great work into a number of other schools. But when it comes to your knowledge of what we do at Real Schools, and in particular, working restoratively, so the RP 2.0 model, you do not have to have all of the answers. What we have is a situation here where we just need you to stand behind that moral imperative, the moral purpose, the beliefs of working restoratively. And when you can stand behind that, we'll give you the skills and the strategies. We'll give you all of the information. We'll upskill you and we will onboard you in a way where you are ready to go as you step in. So if you're sitting there now wondering, have I got the skill set? What we're looking for is a mindset. What we're looking for is a belief. And what we're looking for is a person that can just do amazing work. And then when it comes to the finer piece of what that looks like, we'll be able to support you with that. I think the other thing too is that I'm sure there's a number of people who are in this webinar today and they're interested. They're just wanting to find out a little bit more. They may be people who have been in a job for a period of time. And can I sort of come back to that where we talk about fit? There's no expected length of being a principal that we have to have as a box tick. So we don't need you to have 7 years experience tick and a master's of this and a do of this and whatever else. What we're looking for is somebody that's had that cultural leadership experience in their school, and leading culture is a key part of what we do. But when it comes to, are you interested? Your journey might be a little bit similar to mine. And I sort of think back to my time when I was a principal. And what happened for me is I was fortunate enough to be principal of a medium-sized secondary college in Southwest Victoria. And it was a school that I loved. It was a community that I still love and still closely attached with. But what happened for me is that I started that journey at a reasonably young age. So at about the age of 28, I stepped into the role of acting principal, and things sort of kept progressing from there. And I sort of hit this 10-year period within my journey of school leadership. And I was like, what's next for me? And what I realized is in that moment that what's next for me wasn't going to be another school. I didn't have this sort of driving ambition to go to a bigger school in another town. I also wanted to keep value adding and building on the great things that we were doing at our school. But the reality is I also knew that it would possibly be in the best interest of our school community to see a new leader at some stage, to have somebody new step into the role and to be able to take that school to the next level. And it was through that I arrived at a conversation with Adam. And can I just say right now that I led a partner school. So I employed Adam as a Real Schools principal to be able to lead this improvement journey. We were part of that partnership that I'm going to talk a little bit about more too in the role that you would do as an expert facilitator. And it was through that I started to realize that the things that I really stood for in education, things that I really believed, the things that I go, this is why I got into the job, were all going to be achieved in this role. It allowed me to focus on the work that was really important. It allowed me to focus on supporting those people around me. So school leaders, it allowed me to focus on leadership teams. It allowed me to build community. And what it actually found too is that I was able to remove some of that red tape. So the things that were holding me back, the administrative task, all the things that I'd get out of bed in the morning, go, I've just got to get this done so that I can then get into classrooms. That was all taken away when I stepped into this role. So whatever the reason are that you're here today, I just want you to think about making sure that you're really clear on those, and that what we talk about is a nice fit for what it is that you're looking for to be able to further take that work that you've done as a principal and value add to more schools, to increase your touch, to increase your reach. When it comes to a little bit about us, let me just give you a bit of the history. I think if I was to go way back, that might be helpful. So about 11 years ago, Adam was standing in a school as a school principal. He had done some outstanding work. He actually led a number of schools in the Northern Territory. He was the principal. He was the founding principal of a school there that really was already achieving in its small history some great things. And what happened is that he started to get approached by certain people. He started to get encouraged to be looking elsewhere, to be able to take his influence and really value add to the next level. And the obvious choice for that was to step into some type of system leadership role. But through that, what happened is that Adam had this realization, or he had this knowledge that, yeah, there was something that he could do that was going to be greater. This realization that maybe he could reach more schools. And unlike most people who would take that role of principal and the next step could be a system leadership type role, he stepped away from the system and he stepped into what he believed was the greatest step that he'd ever made. And that step was to set up real schools. Now, at that point, Adam was running what we would call a practice. And the practice is where he is the person who is leading this work. He is the person who is driving this work. He is the face of the business. And he still is the face of the business and doing amazing things. But he was well supported by Chris in the background. But what could happen is, as a one-man show, he could only support a certain number of schools. His diary was jam-packed. And he had this period of years where he would be supporting schools, and it was really about the work that he was doing. And then he made this decision about 3 years after that, 3 or 4 years after that, to take what was a practice where he had all of this intellectual property, all of this success in his school, and take it to the next level, and then flip that from a practice, which was just about Adam, to a business where he started to bring other people in. And I guess probably a fair way to say it was that I was the experiment. So what happened is the first couple of months, we just had to stumble our way through. And the question that I would often ask is, will this work? Will this work where we've got a situation that it's built around Adam and then it comes to other people now coming in? Were they after Adam or were they after the work that we were doing? That little experiment was super successful. And what happened is within months, I found myself with a full card, with a full pool of schools, with a full group of schools that I was supporting. And then we had this, again, moment in time where we said, this stuff really does work. And from there, we've been able to add expert facilitator after expert facilitator. So why I say it is I just want to reassure you that when you step out of the system that you're so familiar with and so comfortable with, and into something that might feel a little bit unknown, there's a little bit of uncertainty around it, I can just reassure you that there's absolutely no uncertainty. And part of that is because we work with schools over a long period of time. So that's certainly part of our history to how we arrived here. So what does the work actually look like? The work that we do with schools, it's over a 3-year period. And I know just looking through, we've got a number of partner prints who have just dropped in here to listen to see what we've got to say, and they'll be able to vouch for this, that the reason why we work with schools over a long period of time is because what we know won't work is a one-day PL event. I think too much money on a one-day event where we've stepped in. It might have been good fun, don't get me wrong, but then what happens on the back end of that is that nothing changes within our schools. We just get busy and we go back to doing the same old thing. So what we work on here is a 3-year commitment where we are shifting, where we are supporting and strengthening the relational culture within your school. And we do that through working restoratively. And a little bit later on, I'm going to unpack the different components that as an expert facilitator, you would be leading and implementing and supporting the school with. But what we want to think about here is that our role effectively as an expert facilitator is to become an extension of the leadership team. I see my role when I step in and work with schools as being another team member within an already strong leadership team. And you become really closely connected to that. Now, I think it's important to acknowledge that that is a key part of the work that we do, because sometimes when you feel like I'm going to step away from a school, you go, but the parts that I love are the people. I love connecting with my team. I love my staff and I love my community. Well, you're fortunate enough in this as you step into that role to actually have that commitment and that connection to a large number of schools and a large number of leadership teams. So that gap that you may potentially feel or worry about isn't actually there. We fill that gap pretty quick in the way that we work with our schools. The other thing too, when it comes to a little bit about us, what are we actually on about? And we stand pretty firm behind the fact that what our goal would be is not only to improve and support and be able to help individual schools, but we want to get this school cultural discussion on the agenda of every Australian school. And we're really fairly determined to do that. Now, when we say that, some people sort of go, oh, gee, it's a bit ambitious, or, a little bit of the old tall poppy syndrome, or you won't get there. But we're firm in the belief that this is a journey that we're on and we're going to get there. And we want you to be part of that. So when you step into the Real Schools team, yes, you do have your own little patch of schools. You do have your little group of schools that you work with. but you're actually committing to something far greater than that. You're actually committing to this fight of getting school culture conversations on the agenda of every Australian schools. And we feel we're starting to make some progress on that. I think the final thing you need to know about us is that when we step into schools, there's three things that we stand behind, these three pillars that you can see on your screen right now. Number one is that we believe that we are leaders of this work. We believe our knowledge and our expertise when it comes to working restoratively and strengthening culture within schools is up there with the best of them. We believe that we have the ability to be able to lead this work. And we stand behind that, and we make sure that our facilitators, that you would be well placed to be able to lead that work in the schools that you support. The second thing is that we, although acknowledge that our work is great, and although we acknowledge that we believe that we're leaders of it, we also know that we're on this learning journey. And this, I think, is a great thing about our team, that there is continual learning and growth opportunities that happen for the individual, but also for our team in the work that we do. And we understand that context is king. So as we step into schools, knowing about their school, their young people, their community is a really key part. So I look back on my time as principal, and I look back on the work that I was doing. I think that, I'd like to consider myself to be a bit of a leader and learner in that education space when I was in the role of principal. But I think about what that impact really looks like now, and I think I achieved those far greater in this role than what I previously had been able to do any of the days that I walked in for being a principal. And then there's this third pillar. And I often say that the third pillar for me is my favorite. It's my little go-to. It's the one that I go, if I'm not achieving this every day, I need to have a really good rethink. What we want to do is make sure that our work is fun. I love the team that I work with. I'm very fortunate to work with some unbelievably great people who just make me smile. And the schools that we work with, yeah, it's tough work. Don't get me wrong. There are moments that we get in there and we all shake our heads and we go, scratching our heads, what are we going to do next? But I guarantee you one thing, we always try to do that with a smile on our face. So if it's those three things that sit well for you, then that's when we're starting to now edge a little closer to this piece of fit. Do we actually fit each other? Because I think it's really important to acknowledge that being part of our team, and we talk about culture, being part of the real schools culture, is that you'll get absorbed in these three pillars pretty quickly if you step into the team, and it'll actually help shape who you are. And what we're looking for is people who can help shape us, but also who can stand behind these three things and go, yep, tick, tick, tick. This is why I get out of bed every single morning. All right, so that's a little bit about who you are and what we're looking for there. It's also a little bit about us. The next thing is a bit about the job. Now we're sort of getting to the logistics part, the process part. I talked a bit about partnership. So over a 3-year journey, we will support schools to embed and strengthen the relational culture and be able to support their whole school community. And I think that's a really important thing, that when we step into schools, that our work isn't just with the principal. It isn't just with the leadership team. We actually support the entire school community. So in total, each expert facilitator would work with about 25 to 30 schools. Now, those 25 to 30 schools for us are schools that can potentially be spread all over Australia. So there is an element of travel that goes with this role. And I'll talk about the logistics of travel as we sort of start to get into this as well. But you might find that out of your 25 to 30 schools, you will see that the large percentage of them might be in the state that you're living, might be in the state that you're currently located. But there might also be a need, because what we gain, we talk about this word fit all of the time. What we feel is that your role might be best placed in a Victorian sort of location. You might have schools spread through Victoria, but there is also a need for you to support a school in Southeast Queensland, because what they're looking for and what your school skill set is really complementary. So therefore, there'll be an element of travel will go with that. What does that actually look like in terms of the logistics? I often say that a typical week for me as an expert facilitator is that I would spend probably about 2 to 3 days a week on the road. Now, that's not every week, because what happens is that at the start of the year, demand is pretty high. People want to get going, they want to get rolling. And then what happens after the back of term 1 is that we hit term 2 and 3, and it's a little bit like the grind. Now, we do spend time in schools, but it might not be as often as it is in term 1. And then there's term 4, that at the start of term 4, sometimes it's a little quiet and then it ramps up again. But you could average your weeks to say that on about 2 to 3 days of each week, I'm going to be in a school supporting schools, which leaves me about 2 to 3 days where I'm going to be in the home office. and I'm going to be working from home, supporting schools, Zooming in for meetings, running little sessions like this. All of those things that we do to support the schools when we're not face-to-face can happen when we're not there. So your job is also to be able to help us, and you can see that word sell there. And I often chat with principals at this point, and they go, oh, I don't know about the sell stuff. I don't know about the salesy stuff. Not feeling super comfortable about that. You don't have to be super comfortable about that. We get that our history, our past, our growth, all of our learning and education hasn't been around sales. It's been around educational leadership. But what we are asking here is to be able to say, can we find the names of a few people that you reckon we could have a chat with, and we'll do the heavy lifting on that. So when it comes to, for a better term, sales or being able to get schools on board, it sits with two people in the business. Adam's responsible for that stuff, and I'm responsible for that stuff. So what's your job? Your job is to deliver. Your job is to step in and do amazing things with schools. And again, when I think back to my role as a principal, I think about all the plates that I was spinning. I think about all of the different things that I had to do on a typical day. I think about the things that were related to learning, the things that weren't related to learning. What we want to do here is go, if you step into this role, if we feel that you're a good fit for us and we're a good fit for you, when you step in, we want you to do amazing work in a really narrow lane. We want you to focus on something that we know you're going to make a difference on. And then we've got this amazing ops teams that I've referred to already, an amazing marketing arm of the business as well. And then they do all the heavy lifting behind the scenes to make sure that we step in and make that difference. Now, what does that difference actually look like? The sort of difference that they make for us is that when we go to visit one of our schools, I don't have to worry about booking a flight. I don't have to worry about making sure that I've got a car rental at the other side. I don't have to worry about accommodation. That is all taken care of by our amazing team. And if on the back end of a trip, I get to a point where my flights have been delayed or something's just gone amiss and I've missed a flight, I make one phone call and that team just takes care of everything. So we talk about high-performing teams all of the time in school. And can I honestly stand behind this and say, is the Real Schools team a high-performing team? Absolutely it is. It's like nothing I've ever worked in before. It's an experience that just blows my mind. And I'm sure as I was to unpack this stuff in the last 3 or 4 minutes, you start to get this sort of sense of, wow, can I just say this is just the tip of the iceberg? The work that happens to support each expert facilitator, the professional conversations that we have as facilitators to be able to take each other to the next level, mind-blowing. And talk about push you out of your comfort zone. Absolutely it does. But push you out in a safe way. I couldn't think of a more safer and secure environment to have some of these conversations about practice. So this is part of the joy, the pleasure of what I've got every single day. And this is something that you could also have. Let me just talk a little bit about what that partnership stuff looks like that I've dropped a few times. So there is a professional learning day. We are asking for people to be able to stand in front of a team of teachers and lead an amazing experience for their school. And again, I come back to saying, don't worry, we've got the slide decks, we'll onboard you, we'll make sure you've got all the info that you need. But what we need is somebody who's got presence as they step into the room. We need someone that's just going to go, wow, that person makes a difference in my school. And the professional learning day is fun. But what we know is that it's not the professional learning day that makes the big impact. It's actually the work that happens beyond that. And the in-class support day is one of the key parts of the work. And it's the part that I absolutely love. It's really authentic, it's really genuine, and it's really organic. So what happens on that day? We roll our sleeves up and we get into classrooms. And what we're doing is we're taking this theoretical aspect, the practical stuff that we talked about, that then sometimes there's this gap between the theory and then implementation. We fill that gap for schools. We step in and we either model or we co-teach. So we're actually demonstrating, we're leading this work in the classroom. And I often make the joke when I work with schools, I sort of go to schools and they say, yeah, I reckon when I was talking at the professional learning day, you're there going, yeah, but you don't know little Johnny in grade 4. I go, yeah, you're right. We don't know Johnny, but we're going to get to know him. And this is part of that work that goes, it's so rewarding. So the in-class support day is pretty cool. There's leadership mentoring and teacher coaching. So we work with leadership teams and we support classroom teachers. And what teachers often find love about this is that with this comes zero judgment. So it's not somebody from their system or somebody in a senior role who's asking questions of their practice. All I say is that we're just there to value add, to give you a few more tools, to be able to add to that amazing stuff that you're already doing and potentially take it to the next level. We have parent engagement sessions. We know the importance of getting parents on the same page. So we run these sessions for parents. and we celebrate the great work that schools are having. Again, a really cool experience where you get to meet the parent community. We then have this role of providing advice, support, and we reckon that as principals, your leadership over the last X amount of years would have given you so much valuable information, skills, and tools. We want to know about that stuff. So we're not saying that everything that we do is just how it has to be. We know that every expert facilitator that we bring in brings in some amazing ideas, and we would love to hear what those amazing ideas are. So that's a little bit about what the job looks like. Let me talk about the benefits. Can I say that, and I think I've probably gone down this path enough today, that the value of the team that we work in for me is just so rewarding. If I was to think about my time back as a principal, I felt that I was an okay principal. I know there's some people in here that actually were familiar and knew me as a prin, so I'm going to use the word okay to describe my leadership. But within that, I often thought too that I, as a leader in a school where I lived in the town, where a couple of my kids actually attended the school, and my wife, who was also in the teaching game, I thought that I was a pretty good dad. I thought that I was doing a pretty good job outside of school. And it wasn't until I stepped into this that I realized that maybe I was a little wrong with that. I find that in this job, there is this sort of nice amount of pressure, this nice amount of expectation. And I don't know, you're mindful of using the word, and not a little bit of stress that sits with this, but just enough to push you out of that comfort zone. But I honestly believe that in this role, I'm a better husband, I'm a better parent, and I'm a better community member, because when I sit on the couch of a night, I'm 100% committed to my family. And when I walk into a school, I'm 100% committed to them. So it's not like when I was a principal and I'll be sitting on the couch talking to my kids and I'll be thinking about the 5 or 6 things that one happened during the day and that they need to happen tomorrow. So I find that there's that part of me that's really fulfilling. There's so many opportunities there to go to that next level in terms of what your true beliefs are around education. And sometimes the red tape holds us back. The red tape doesn't hold us back in this role. We get the chance to explore that. We get the chance to run these experiments. And part of the cool stuff about working for an organization like Real Schools is a lot of our work that we value add to. Yeah, it's tried and tested and it's proven, but we also run these experiments, but we're not attached. If they don't work, we go, oh, that was a good idea. Just didn't land today. So that's sort of those personal benefits. But I also reckon that there's some questions that are going to come up around the important stuff. How am I going to support my family? How am I going to make sure that I pay the bills? We know that you would be stepping out of a role that would be reasonably well supported financially. And we want to make sure that when you step into this role, that financial support is equal to. And what we also know is that we have conversations with our expert facilitators 12 months after they start for salary increments and increases. And can I say at this stage, we've got 6 expert facilitators. We are 6-0. 6 wins, 0 losses in terms of all people jumping on, staying on, and being able to meet those increments. So what we want to make sure that you are reassured that you're not going to be going backwards in salary. And all of that travel that I talked about, all of that way of finding your way about, around our amazing country, that's all paid for as well. So what happens here is that you're not going to be going backwards. A key part, and I probably underestimated the value of this when I started, is around the flexibility of the work hours. So working from home, working in a situation where you're providing high levels of intense support at certain times, and then you may be on a travel period before you go into the next school. What happens is that you get an element of flexibility with that. And there is so much professional trust. Can I say the way that Adam leads this company, this business, and the professional trust and expectations that he places on us to be leaders, it is second to none. And I'm really fortunate and grateful to be part of that. And I'd love for you to know what that feels like. So there'll be times, and as you can imagine, a lot of professional learning days are on a Monday. You can be guaranteed that some stages throughout your year, you're going to need to be in a certain state on a certain Monday, and that's going to cut into your Sunday afternoon. And that's okay. You jump on a plane on a Sunday, you travel, you might get home on the Tuesday, and it might be 10 o'clock at night for whatever reason. You have permission, you have trust to be able to, on the Wednesday, jump out of bed when you need to jump out of bed, maybe to go and take your young people to school. Maybe it might be an opportunity to go and have a meal with your partner, and then you can get into work that day when you feel like it. Or you might have something really pressing on that Friday afternoon, and you go, you know what? I just need that little bit of flexibility. There's full trust there. We know that as confident, capable leaders for so long a period of time, that it's not something we ever have to question work ethic in in all truth, we have to probably scale that back a little bit. We have to make sure that people are looking after themselves. So this flexibility makes sure that you are at your best. And that's what we want. When people step into schools, we want them to be ready to go. We want them to be in the right state. And getting in the right state doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do everything that you'd normally do as a principal in the lead up to stepping into a school. It means that you step in the right mind, ready to go and to make that difference. So it is such a benefit of the work that we do. All right, we're getting really close now. What I want to talk about is the process. So up for the last 35 minutes, you might be sitting there going, yeah, this sounds okay. Might be worth exploring. You know, there's parts here that I love. There's parts that I want to ask a little bit more about. Or you just might be sitting there going, I am all in on this. So the first thing you need to do is you need to watch this briefing. Tick. You've already done that if you're here today. I know a couple of people, just a quick glance out the side there, have had to leave for whatever reasons. Friday morning in a school. I get it. So if you haven't been able to watch this, but if you want to watch this again, there'll be a link that will be sent to you with this recording. If you're keen in stepping it forward, now we get to the part that I reckon people are going, oh, a little bit of a turn in the belly. We don't follow normal processes. What we don't ask is for you to go away to read, you know, the 4-page document that we provide you, and then to respond to 8 selection criteria, 1 page per criteria, needs to be submitted. Oh, no, we're not going through that process. We want to know, are you a good fit? So what we're going to ask is that you send us a 5-minute video. What's that 5-minute video need to do? The first thing it needs to do is to tell us a little bit about who you are. What we want to hear about is a bit of the personal, professional version of you. We want to get that little spark that goes, oh yeah, that's now a spark in us. We want to hear about the why for you. The second thing that I feel will be of value in that video is to talk a little bit about your beliefs, your understanding, your willingness to stand behind working restoratively. Now, what we want is to make sure that that is 5 minutes. Can I just say that I'll look at these videos, and I know Adam will look at these videos as well. When we look at these videos, there's nothing more off-putting than seeing a 9-minute video because people couldn't fit it into the 5. 5 is 5, so please stick to that. The second thing that we ask with that video is that it then gets sent to the email address there, info@realschools.com.au. Please don't send it directly to my inbox, because what will happen is that I'm not awesome at being able to make sure these are all in the right folder at the right time. So our ops team, our support team, will make sure that that's all there ready to go. We also ask that you attach a one-page CV. And I reckon people are going, oh, how am I going to get my 30-year amazing career into one page? I get that. But we want you just to pick and choose the pieces that are of relevance to us. If you go back and give me a blow description of every school that you've ever worked in, not really that interested. What we are interested in is your leadership, how it's impacted those people around you, and how you reckon that it's going to value add to our team. So if you can get that in by 5 p.m. on Monday, the 1st of May, what will happen then is that the process will then unfold over the following weeks. The one thing that's not on that dot point list there, I am going to ask you if in that email, you could please identify if you want to be considered for all 4 positions, just the mid-year position, or the start of 2024. So there's sort of 3 options. There's really, I want to be considered for all. That's option number 1. It's going to increase your chances. Option number 2 is just the June one, because, whatever reason, which I don't think is going to be a likely outcome. Number 3 will be just the 2024. Now, we respect and understand that. Can I say that with the mid-year intake, we will and are open to conversations. We know that if you're stepping out of a school, what we want, as I said earlier, is that decision to be a little tricky. And what we don't want you to do is just to walk and turn your back on the school community. So we will have these conversations with you. What we want you to do, there's nothing more important for us as we onboard new expert facilitators to make sure that they finish the year well, or the period of time well at their school. We want them to walk away, shoulders really being able to pin back and walk away with pride, the fact that they've left their school in a really good position. So if that's something that we can help you do, then by all means, we will do that. So then from there, we'll take a moment to have a look at those videos. For some people, they will progress through to a follow-up conversation. Now, those follow-up conversations happen in a whole range of different ways. Number 1 is that we'll get some information to you. We've got a prospectus, and that prospectus just goes into a little bit more detail of what I've talked about today. Some of the things that you want to be considering, especially if you want to sit down now with your partner and go, right, we're getting serious with this stuff. Here's the logistics, the bits and pieces that we really need to know as a family to be able to make the right decision. The other thing that will then happen is that there'll be a conversation, not necessarily an interview. You notice I haven't used the word interview at any stage. Again, we just keep creeping closer every time we talk to going, is this going to be something that we're going to do? So the importance of being able to do that for us and having these open conversations far exceeds the need to be able to go, right, we've got an interview, 6 questions, here they come. And we'll just keep talking you through that, but everything will happen via email or conversation then. Let me just finish with this last slide, because I reckon there'll be some people sitting here going, oh yeah, I reckon it sounds good, but just is it for me right now? The first thing is that there are some costs if we say no. The cost of that, I think the biggest cost is that we sit there wondering, what if? What I'm going to encourage you to do is to go, please don't leave those what ifs until a point where you can't actually go back and repair that. We have 4 people willing and keen to join our team, I'm sure, out there right now. Does that mean that we're going to have another 4 next year and the year after that? I don't know. I can't guarantee that. I reckon now's your time. So if you're sitting there on the fence and you're a bit unsure, I think the importance of saying, what's the cost of not doing it, and asking that question can far exceed the fact of, oh yeah, I'll just wait until the time's right, because potentially the time may never be right, especially if we're doing some amazing stuff within our school. There's some risks in that. I get that. You know, the cost of not doing it might be something that you want to sort of talk through in more detail. And if that's the case, as we progress down this path, raise some of those questions with us. Look, I'm now at this point where I'm going to say 40 minutes into this, I'm hopeful that you've got the information that you need. There's a couple of options you've got. Number one is that you can just press leave and you can go on your merry way and do your stuff and enjoy your Friday and hopefully go and record a video. The second thing is that you can hang around and you can use that chat box. I'm going to work through the chat box now. So if you want to stay and listen to bits and pieces, do that. Probably just that one last thing that I do need to sort of leave you with is that what's our stuff? Where's our reference point? It's right here. Well, here I am. It's right here, Restoring Teaching. So if you're wondering what the RP 2.0 model looks like, if you're wondering what Adam's amazing work over the last 10, 11, 12, 15 years has been based around, it's this. And if you go to our website, you will be able to get this book and you will be able to find yourself through what it is that we do within schools. This is the work. This is the support. I'm hopeful that there's been some value in today's session for you and clarified a few questions. I just see one question that's popped up that I am going to answer before people leave. The quality of the video. Hey, you don't need to go out right now and employ somebody to do this like ace video. It's okay that you grab your iPhone and you tell that story with that iPhone sitting in front, but just be a little mindful that we want sort of semi-professional. What I don't want is this script that sits there where I've got somebody and I can see up their nostrils as they're videoing themselves and reading from a script. No. Just tell us your natural self, what it is. So that's sort of the quality of the video that we're looking like. All right, thank you. I'm now going to work through this big, long list of chat. And if you've got anything that you want to ask, pop it in there. If not, go and enjoy your Friday and we'll hopefully stay in touch. Thank you and take care. Okay, so there's a question there around, there's a couple of questions around, are there roles for people who aren't principals? Unfortunately not at the moment, no. We are really clear on the fact that at Partnership, that's what we stand for, and that's what we want to make sure that we support our schools with, and that requires a principal. So thank you. Yeah, the training for expert facilitators. We have a really thorough onboarding process. I don't know if I can speak too much to the quality of it because I'm the person that leads that, but put it this way, the feedback from the other expert facilitators is that they are ready to go when they step into a school. So we had one of our newest expert facilitators step into a school yesterday, and we got some lovely messages last night about how that day went for them and how prepared they were. I've got another one about to step in on Monday, and he's super ready to go. I just met with him prior to this briefing. So I'd like to think that because it's under my portfolio, the quality of the onboarding is ace, but we're always developing that. That comes under that learning and that leaders pillar. Yeah, there's a color. Yep. Yeah, I need to keep coming back to that that principle. Look, if you're unsure, if you're sort of there going, you know, I've done this or I've done that, I'm on the border, just reach out rather than go through individual credentials today. but I want you to go, could you go, for a better term, the pub test? Could you go to the pub and go, I've been a principal, and stand behind that? Yeah. Well, if you could, then drop us a line and we can talk about that. Yeah, look, what are the skills that we'd like to see in our team? I think what we look for, number one, first and foremost, is when I talk about that fit, is just a person who likes people, person that can do great work, that's been doing great work in their school. And it's that cultural piece. For us, we talk a lot about relationships. We talk a lot about how do we shape that culture, and really we do it through the way we behave. So what we're looking for is, there's got to be some expertise. There's got to be some evidence of the work that you've done around cultural leadership. But beyond that, the list is endless of what you could bring there. We haven't got this sort of set or defined way of what we're looking for. Yeah, we do use some data. There's a question there about data. Yeah, we capture our own data. We measure against some of the department data. And we're actually looking to step into some work with a university in the very near future. So that's super exciting. Yeah, there is a question around Christian schools. We work with all different schools, primary, secondary, all systems, schools of faith. So the short answer to that is yes. And what I might do to that question there that somebody's just popped in there, I might just flick you an email at some stage later today or Monday, just with some of that. I'm just going to make a note of that. Okay, the principal one's come up again. All right, the work away from home. Yep. And regional. I'm in regional area, so that's a decision that I've made. I could live closer to Melbourne, and I would probably save 2 hours of travel. But the decision I've made for my family is that I'm willing to put a couple of extra hours in. Everyone's a little bit different. We've got some of our team who are really inner metro, and others who are a little bit more regional. And we go, we're not holding on to what way you go. We just need you to be able to say, yeah, I can get to the airport and I can get moving. With the balance around family, that is a little tricky. I'm very fortunate. I've got a very supportive family, a very supportive wife who acknowledges and understands that at times I'm going to be a little bit absent from home, but then I certainly make up for that when I'm at home. So what happens is that peak and trough is probably the best way to describe it, but there would be an expectation that you would have to do some travel. It's not something that we can say, we can just guarantee that you'll be close to your little regional centre or even Metro Melbourne. It's probably not something that at this stage we can put a guarantee around. Understand that people, Yeah, so how do expert facilitators learn from each other? So we do it in a whole range of ways. Because we are spread across Australia, we have lots of meeting time online together, and we have different types of meetings. So we sort of have like operations meetings where we just go through logistics, but then we have meetings that are really focused on professional growth. And a recent example is that last week, with very few schools back, we had a session where our expert facilitators would lead a session of the professional learning day for others in the team. And what we were trying to do is to unpack what's the best possible way that we can do this. How do we grow from each other and learn from each other? So, putting yourself out in front of other facilitators, ex-prins, and going, this is how I deliver it. Again, it's sort of like, now we're pushing boundaries right here. So that learning growth opportunity is certainly present in all aspects of our work. Yeah, I understand. Sorry for the people who are saying, I'm close with the principal stuff, but not there. Are we engaged with education policymakers? We're edging closer to that. We're in conversations, and you will see that some of the policies that have been recently released, e.g. New South Wales, quite complimentary of our work. So it's something that we're not closing the door on. And again, this is where we lean on our facilitators and go, who are your contacts? Who are the people that we can meet with that are going to help us to get this conversation going around how do we really change the landscape of Australian schools? Yeah, acting prins, that probably falls into that category of just give us a little bit more. Partnerships with other orgs, conversations, but not a lot at this stage. Yeah, how many schools? So we've got about 165 schools that we support at the moment, and then there's another couple of hundred in our alumni. So there are schools of all different varieties, and that's probably the best way to sum it up. Yeah, there's a good question. All right, so there's two good questions, logistics. Number one is the car hire. So what happens is if you use your own car, what we do is we cover the petrol for that. So again, not out of pocket. And that's for kilometers that are over a certain amount. So if, you know, for a better term, if you're working with a close by school or a nearby school, we go, well, that's sort of like a reasonable distance to travel to school. And we've got all of this sort of outlined in our policies. But the second thing is if you are doing some extended travel, e.g. I'm doing a 7-hour trip from here to Mildura, then what will happen is that that will be covered for that. The other part that comes here is around school holidays. Oh, the old school holidays. I have to say this. Number one is I've crossed the line. So I don't get school holidays. We get 4 weeks of annual leave every year. But what happens with those 4 weeks of annual leave is that 2 of them are on our shutdown period, so over the Christmas period, and the other 2 are strongly encouraged to be taken during school holidays. Now, most people choose to take that anyway. If there was an exception to that, we'd be able to have a conversation. But the other thing that happens is that, and I'm going to give last week as the perfect example, every state aligned last week with a week of holidays. So what happens is our travel backs off and the flexibility comes in where we will just work and focus on different things. So it's sort of like a reset, recharge time anyway. Although you're working, you're getting to this stuff that you wanted to do all term, but you were just unable to get to. But yes, you do give up your school holidays. All right, how's our team spread? We go, all right, the best way to sum that up would be if I work around. Victoria, there's a couple of us. Adam's over on the Mornington Peninsula. I'm over in the Southwest. We've then got Kirsty Lush. So Kirsty's in South Australia. We've got someone in WA, somebody in Brisbane or Queensland, and we've got a couple of people, 3 people in total in New South Wales. So we've got this beautiful spread at the moment, and we're just going to keep adding to that. All right, are we thinking about going international? Yeah, we are. We don't know what that looks like. But right now, where's our priority sit? It sits with Australian schools. That's where our real care comes for. That's where our real drive is. So although every now and again we joke, to be honest, we want to make sure that this conversation is happening in every Australian school. So therefore, international isn't at the top of our list. But hey, not something that we're going to ignore. Oh, Marnie's jumped in there and answered a couple of the questions. All right, I think that I have answered most questions. How soon would you be looking to onboard the new expert facilitator? Couple of ways that we do that. Number one is the best way to do it is to start creeping slowly towards being onboarded before you start. And that's a real open, honest conversation with each other to go, you know what, can we spare 1 or 2 hours a week, maybe of an evening, maybe of a weekend, maybe during the school day, maybe of a morning, just to start to give you some information, to start to get you a little bit ready. And what we want to make sure you do is that our focus when we do start is that it's on that first professional learning day. So we go, right, we've got someone ready to go, get into school and make that difference. And then on the back end of that, we then look at onboarding for the other part. So it's co-designed, for a better term, what the onboarding looks like. What I often find is that most principals are wanting to give up an hour or 2 of their week to be able to find out a little bit more about this so that when they do step into it, they've got something and then they're like, right, let's hit the ground running. All right. I think that's all of the questions. So I'm just going to hang for another 2 minutes. If there's anything that you want, pop it in the chat box. If not, press that bottom right button that says leave. Go and enjoy your Friday.